Hi, my name is Renee. I'm the European Regional Trainer for Rare Beauty, and in this video we're going to talk through how to use the Rare Beauty Liquid Contour. So let's talk a little bit about the contour itself. This is a beautiful, liquid, blendable and weightless formula that is going to mimic the natural shadows in your complexion. We've designed this formula to make contouring easy, so it's your contour, your call. And I'm going to show you a super easy method on how to apply, blend and wear it to fit your needs. So to begin, let's actually walk through the shades together to help you find your perfect shade. Now, our first shade in our contour selection is the shade Gentle. This is a fair, cool taupe. This is a gorgeous shade for anyone who's looking for something super soft and natural to mimic a cool tone shadow. We then have our second shade, which is Mellow, and this is a light cool brown. This shade is slightly more neutral. It's not as cool toned as Gentle, so you have a tad more balance in the undertone. So those are our two lightest shades. We then have Solace. This is Selena's shade. So this is a beautiful medium taupe. Imagine Gentle, but in a slightly deeper form. Then we have Serene, which is a medium brown. This has a beautiful neutral undertone and is great for more medium toned skin. Walking into our deeper shade range, we now have Tranquil, which is a gorgeous chocolate brown. Again, with more of a neutral base compared to Serene. So you can see that gradual shade development. And then we have our two deeper shades. We have Peaceful and Sublime. Peaceful has a gorgeous neutral undertone. I'm going to swap this one up the top. Whereas Sublime has a more of a cooler undertone. So you can see the difference there. So now that we know about all of the different shades in the Soft Pinch Liquid Contour collection, how do we know which one is the right fit for you? So I'm going to demonstrate the product on myself, so let's colour match me. I would describe my skin shade as light to medium, so I would say either Gentle or Mellow would be great options for myself. Now, in terms of knowing which one to go for first, I like my contour to mimic the way I have natural hollows in my complexion. So I feel like because I want to slightly warm up my skin, I'm going to go for Mellow. So now we know all about the shades, let's talk about how to apply the product. And one of our favourite methods here at Rare Beauty is our Dot Blend Done method. This method is going to simplify the way you apply your contour to keep it nice and easy so you can wear it all day with confidence. So the Dot Blend Done method, we're going to break it down. Let's talk about the dot element. And this is all about focusing on the placement of the product. So when we dot, we want to dot the product in our natural hollows of the face and place it in the areas where you want to mimic those shadows. So typically we like to go under the cheekbone to help lift and push out that cheekbone. We like to go along the forehead to shape and restructure and add a little bit of dimension at the top of the face. I always like to do a little dot here on that inner corner bridge of my nose, and then to finish off I like to do a couple of dots along my jaw. So that would be your dot aspect. The next part is blend. This is where you now want to focus on your blending techniques and your tools of choice. So I reach for my Soft Pinch blush brush, but we love using this with contour because it has a beautiful angle structure to the brush and it's also duofibered, which means that it works with a multitude of different formulas. With the blending aspect of contour, we really want to avoid rubbing the contour into place because that's what's going to disturb the makeup underneath, and it can also cause overblending, which is when the contour can get a little bit more messy. Instead, we really want to stipple and pat the product in exactly where we place those dots. We're being super strategic with our blending. For example, we're just going to tap exactly where those dots are, and you can see that that product melts away into the skin like butter, leaving a very natural pigment and shadow on the skin. Then with the cheekbone, I actually like to rotate my brush and allow that angle to hug that natural hollow of my cheek. And I'm going to tap and stipple that dot into place. You almost then create a bit of a line, and it's definitely a trust the process, so just take it slow and allow the brush to do the work. And you can see I'm very lightly tapping and stippling that product up into the cheek. I'm not blending it down. We want to keep this area nice and bright and focus that contour exactly directly underneath that cheekbone. And just take your time to tap and blend until you're happy with how it looks. Then we're going to move on to the jaw and do exactly the same process. Tap and blend those dots where you place them. Avoiding this area here. Remember, we want to keep this area bright. We want to create that contrast of colour. And just tap it in. And anything that's left on my brush, I always like to take up behind my ear to make sure that I have a nice seamless blend along my jaw so that pigment looks as natural as possible. Then for our nose contour, we want our nose contour to look very natural again because it's quite a prominent aspect of our face, but we only want to have a little bit of an impact. So I'm going to change my brush. For this, I like to use our concealer brush because again, it has that really gorgeous angle, but it's got a really nice slim finish. So I can again be super strategic with my blending and the brush can do a lot of the work for me. So again, we're not going to rub, we're going to tap that contour into place. And I like to very lightly take it into that inner crease of the eye, tapping it in and taking any of the excess down the bridge of the nose. And my trick with contour is take your time and very gently tap it in where you want it. And if you ever feel like the nose contour is looking a little bit too harsh, just take your ring finger and just tap and diffuse over to soften that blend. And there you have a really beautiful natural contour for every day. So on this side, we created more of an everyday structure and dimension. On this side, we're going to walk through how you can exaggerate it and amp it up for maybe more evening or going out wear. To do this, I'm going to choose a slightly darker shade, and that is the shade Solace, which is the next shade up from Mellow. This is just to really exaggerate that shadow and have a little bit of a richer pigment. However, the placement techniques that we spoke about with Dot Blend Done is going to stay the same. We're going to dot in that hollow of the cheek, around the forehead. I actually like to do an extra dot on the forehead if I'm going for more of an exaggerated look. Because this is a richer pigment, I'm actually going to just do one dot along my jaw. And because we're exaggerating the look, I'm going to do a little bit more with my nose contour. So we're going to mimic that first dot on the top of the bridge of the nose, but I'm also going to do a little bit on the bottom of my nose as well, just to kind of add a little bit of an extra point. My soft pinch blush brush again, we're going to tap that pigment into place, again focusing on that dotting motion and tapping it in where those blots were applied. So really gently stipple, and you can see that that product just melts away like butter. Rotate the brush to do the underneath the cheek, and because this is a deeper pigment, I'm going to focus it primarily underneath that cheekbone. So exactly where this line is, that is where I'm going to blend it to get much more of a noticeable contour line. And because it's a richer pigment, I'm going to take a little bit more time to blend and trust the process. A little tip as well is if you feel like you have a little bit of excess product on your brush, don't be afraid to use all areas of the brush, even the clean parts. So I'm actually going to go in with the back end of this brush here to soften and use that to diffuse my product on my face without having to grab another brush. So you can really achieve this with minimal tools. So we can already see here from this cheek to this cheek that this side is a little bit deeper and a little bit more structured. And repeat that on the jaw, tapping it in. A little bit behind the ear. And you can see one dot along my jaw did plenty of work. I always say it's easier to build than it is to take away. So start with less and apply and add more if you need it. Okay, now the nose contour. Back with my concealer brush. We're going to stipple again that product down. And because we're exaggerating this contour a little bit more, I'm going to focus that contour more on the bridge of my nose rather than in the crease of my eye. And a little tip is if you have a mirror in front of you, don't be afraid to kind of look at the face in all angles to see how your contour is looking. And you can always go back in and adapt. But this is such a great way to really get to know your face and how it works and what you like. Okay, and now the tip. Now this is a question I get asked all the time, is how to blend the tip of the nose without it looking muddy. So again, we want to be super strategic about our blending and where we want to blend that product out. I've done 2 little dots on the tip of my nose to encourage myself to be more precise. So I'm going to use the very tip of my concealer brush and tap and diffuse that dot so that shadow is exactly where that dot was. And then the same on the top, just blend it over the bridge. And then I'm just going to grab the base of the brush and just make sure that all of that contour is connected. So there's a really beautiful, natural, seamless blend. So here we have more of an exaggerated side versus your more everyday side. And those are my tips on how to use the Rare Beauty Soft Pinch Liquid Contour.